anybody have any questions? You can ask your questions, things that you may have not understood. But I have a question. You mentioned about therapy, and you said with everything that you went through, you had to accept and admit that you had a problem in order to go through therapy. And I feel as though that within the church, a lot of Christians are struggling to go for professional therapy because it is more of, just come, we'll lay hands on you, we'll pray for you, and you are perfectly fine. Now, I believe in therapy. I believe that both spiritually, God will help you with the spiritual side, but physically, you also need that help in order to maintain your mindset. And so with therapy, you mentioned that it really, really helped you a lot, and it really it took you out, but it was a matter of you. Was it therapy that helped you to accept and say, you know what, I have an issue, I need to sort this out, I need to fix me? Or was it more of the prayer side? That's what I want to understand. Which one was it? Or was it both?
For me, it was mainly therapy, because at the time I was going through the therapy, I was not a born-again Christian, although I was going to a Catholic church. So I wasn't really, I believed in God at the time. God was always my source, but I was a Catholic, okay? But I wasn't like born again. So for me, it was therapy. Now, when I came into being born again, then it was me tackling the spiritual side of it. Because although the therapy did the physical part of it, I came out of it, I was okay, I was doing things, but there was still some spiritual element attached to it. For instance, it's like I was 7 years old, and this is just a revelation that God gives to me. So in the spiritual realm, being 7 and being raped is still fornication. So therefore, everything that follows fornication would follow me. I know it sounds like it's unfair, but the spiritual realm doesn't really look at it like that, okay? In the spiritual realm is that an act was done, and this act is called this, and whatever follows in that. So when I came into being born again, then I was tackling that, you see, the fornication part of it. That's why I kept falling into fornication, because it's what I had to tackle, you see. But in my body, in my mind, it was the therapies that helped me, if you see what I'm trying to say. So this is how I tell people, see, God is in the spirit realm, okay? And our mind, Christ told us to renew it, and your mind again is where the battle is. That's why you need therapists and life coach to help you with your mind. But your physical body, that's why we have the physical doctors that gives you maybe pills to keep the chemical in your brain together for that season. And always remember that God operates in season, guys. Just because you're going through a physical medication or physical something, it does not mean it's going to be there for a lifetime. And you have to understand that without this body, our spirit is nothing. So it's very important to learn to separate. This is how I put it in my book. A doctor is for your physical body. A therapist, a life coach, a counselor is for your mind. And then God is for your spirit. If you learn to separate like that, you will live the balanced life here on earth. And then what you'll find is that the spiritual things will be dominating, and eventually you won't need a therapist, you won't need a doctor.
Oh, Deborah. Your family, do they know about all of these things that you went through, and how did they react? What was their reaction like?
My mom and dad didn't know until later, when I decided to. Everybody kind of like knew in a later age, because like I said, in Congo, I'm 7. If I'd open, I would get whooped. They won't even believe you, okay? So because I already knew the kind of people that I was, but when they later found out I was older, they were all older, what can they do? It's just one of those like, wow, we didn't know. They were a bit upset, and I had to sort of like let them know it's not your fault. So don't blame yourself, it's not your fault. You can only raise me how you were raised, so I can't take it out on you, kind of thing. So so I had to let them know, because I had to write it in the book. I wrote it in the book, so I had to let them know.
And how are you with your 6 children, like raising them and their mindsets? Are you working on their mindsets to be stronger? Because obviously with everything you've experienced, no mother would want their kids to experience it or to go through it. So what are your techniques? What are you doing with your children and to support them as well in this horrible world?
With the children, it's like this. Okay, they came into my life, I never went into their life. So every child born onto me, wherever they find me, they get into that lifestyle and they will move with it, will carry on. So it's to say that I never changed my life for them. Okay, they came into my life and I sit them down every now and then and I tell them and I talk to them that I was just a vessel that God used to bring them here. I'm only allowed to be the parent until the 18. After the 18, God will take over to them. So they have to learn God by themselves. So I think for me, it sounds funny when I'm saying it, but really I do say that to them. So they all kind of like find God, you know, in their own way. I'm always there for them. I'm always a life coach, but we have a relationship where they call me by my name because I told them that, you know, I'm just taking care of you for a temporary moment of time, but then there comes a time God will take you and I can't stop you. I give you my full blessing, my full, you know, go, be great, be bigger than me, be above me, but here's my story. Don't go that line. You know, so my daughter is 18 now. She's doing her thing. She's moving on to her things, and she's a virgin. Nothing. So it's like my kids will not live the life I lived because I believe I fought the fight for it. It stopped and ends with me.
Wow.
Never stop your life for your children. It's selfish, because if you stop your life, who is the role model that they're supposed to look into so that they can have a leeway of life, to have that guidance in life? TV. And a lot of women have made those mistakes, and I've told them, carry on with what you do. If you have to leave them in child mind that don't feel guilty, leave them. Okay, the kids will take however you move them. But when you stop your life, what happens is that child will become your enemy when they grow up and they want to live their life. You will constantly keep reminding them that I stopped work for you, I stopped this for you. But here's my question: how does a baby tell a grown-ass woman to stop anything? Just think about that one. How does a baby control you? Are you not the one to control them? So it's very important. Don't use kids as an excuse. If you feel you have an issue, you feel you have a shortfall of something, or you just feel like you want to relax, say, I just want to relax. But don't put it on the kids.
Does anybody else have any questions before we close up?
Would you say you're over what happened to you?
How can I say? Depending on what you mean by being over. What happened to me will never be over, because it's like I will never know how it is to lose my virginity. Okay, that's always going to be something that's always going to be with me. However, I have accepted that what happened to me had a reason for it to happen to me. So my acceptance of what happened to me puts me in a position where it's like I take up my problem, I take up on my cross, and I said I become a solution to each and every person that may have gone through it. I need to let them know that even though you're never gonna know, not knowing the physical part opened me to know the spiritual virginity, because it's like I said, it's the three body, it's not just the physical, but it opened me to know how to be so intimate with God. You see, that's why I love deeply, because I'm not attached with my physical. I'm attached with my spiritual, my inside. I don't love in the physical. I love in the heart, because that's how I felt God's love. I don't know if that's making sense. Yeah. So not knowing the physical pain of losing a virginity caused me to understand God's love, to feel God's love, because that's what I held on to.
How
Sorry, I know we're finished, but I just wanted to find out because you said from the age of 7 and to the age of 18, you know, because some people who go through such ordeals, they never stop. You find that this girl who's been raped from the age of 7, maybe 9, 10, some end up being in prostitution. Even their teenagehood is not really normal because they start chasing after men, but because you said you were hanging around with men and obviously trying to get answers, maybe thinking you get an understanding of why it happened to you. But then from the age of 18, I would say it's such courage and maybe to have to go through that and then to get to even 18, not being involved with men, boys, or whatever, you know what I mean? But then things started happening probably in your 20s. So would you say that was a late reaction to the ordeal now?
I think what it was with me, like I said, is like some people, when they get shocked, it's external, I went internal. Okay, so it's like I had a shock internal. It's like my world stopped. Okay, I was living, but I wasn't living. I don't know if that's making sense. I was there growing, but I was absent because I was still inside as that 7-year-old and everything. So I froze. That's the only terminology that I tell people is I froze. It's like time froze. Right up until I was 18, then it caught up again because then you realize that, okay, I was raped, but I can't do nothing about it because these people, that the men that I'm sleeping with, they just want to have sex anyway. Even if you tell them that I was raped, for them it's like nothing, and all that again started depression. And that's when I went into 10 years of like really depression. Dark depression. So it's like, I didn't react because I didn't speak to no one, so it was all in me. So this is another thing as well people have to understand. When you keep things in, it's great, but the day you speak, it's like starting all over again.